They're American heroes who make the ultimate sacrifice. Now there's growing concern over a mental health crisis among our Navy sailors. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Disturbing new reporting by the Military Times finds at least one family says their loved one and sailor attempted to go overboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. It comes amid even more reports that our sailors aboard the aircraft carrier are exhausted and they're being pushed to the brink amid an extended deployment during the war with Iran. The reports actually prompting backlash among Democrats, including Senator Richard Blumenthal. The Connecticut lawmaker sending a letter to Defense Secretary Hegseth and the Navy's acting secretary requesting they answer questions on whether the Navy is able to properly care for our service members. But Secretary Hegseth is already pushing back on the reports from his trip to Panama. Take a listen.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure at every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas and those austere conditions with less port calls, it's incredible. I mean, Americans don't understand what it's like to do that. So as someone who's not been on a ship like that, but been on long deployments, I feel it.
Well, the Navy also putting out a statement saying we have not identified an increase in reported suicidal ideation or suicide attempts aboard the ship. But this story doesn't end there. Sources now telling us the aircraft carrier USS George Washington will now be replacing the Abe Lincoln as part of a long-planned rotation of ships. Joining me now, the editor-in-chief of the Military Times and Marine Corps veteran of the Iraq War, J.D. Simkins. J.D., great to have you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
We reported on the one family that you were able to talk to, but you actually talked to another family as well. What did they tell you?
Well, both of these families who spoke to us were demonstrating the fact that their spouses, their family members are overworked. They're exhausted, exasperated at not getting off the ship for such a lengthy time as it is right now. One of them was somebody who was actively involved in an incident in which they allegedly pulled someone back from the edge of a ship. The other one had expressed a desire to jump from the ship. And this is, I mean, to get to that place where you are actually considering or putting action to that is quite an alarming trend. And I think it demonstrates some of the absolute mental exhaustion that we're hearing right now. And ever since we released that report, we're getting more and more feedback from sailors from previous deployments who are just really
they're exhausted.
They are exhausted, and they're discussing that more and more with us because I think that's a narrative that has been suppressed a little bit until now.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more about that. I was on the Abraham Lincoln during Operation Iraqi Freedom. You have been on these ships as well. I mean, the food's not great. The quarters are tight. You're working long hours. You're not getting a lot of sleep. People are missing their family members. They're missing big events. I remember when I was on the Abe Lincoln, one of the fighter pilots missed the birth of his child. They're missing graduations. So, and then when you don't know when you're coming back, when your deployment is being extended, you're out in the middle of the ocean, things happen to your heart, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it earlier when I was deployed on the USS Tarawa, which is now in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean after a Simkins. There was, we were supposed to get off the ship something like 3 weeks, 4 weeks into our deployment. That got extended a little bit out to about 45 to 50 days, which is absolutely nothing compared to what these sailors are enduring right now. But I can say that even 45 or 50 days without touching solid land and just being in the middle of an ocean pushes your mental strength to the extremes a little bit. And you talk about missing things, the familial elements of that. Everyone who joins the military knows that that's a part of deploying. That's a part of potential wars that we might be involved in. So that's a factor that everyone has accepted, but the indefinite nature of what they are doing right now with the Lincoln and the lack of stopping at ports. I mean, I think the last time some of these sailors have stepped on solid ground was in December. That's absolutely insane. To go that long without a port call, without any type of mental refresh. And we're talking about doing that amid combat operations, which are extremely frantic. They're day in and day out launching sorties off of the flight deck, which if you're not involved, if you're not a pilot, if you're not working air traffic, if you're not doing any of those things, like the majority of the ship is not, a lot of those during flight operations, you're not even allowed to go outside. So, I mean, these sailors who are now 7, 8 months since the last time they stepped on land, a lot of them have not been able to go out. They haven't been able to talk to family members because of River City rules or communications blackouts because of operations. So there's a lot of just disconnect, and you're really putting a lot of faith into the mental strength and resilience into some of these people, and hoping that they're not going to do anything drastic.
And let's talk about that. The mental health assets on the ship. Back when I was on the Abe, during the war, it wasn't like it is now. That is for sure, because we can confirm as of now that there have been chaplains, resiliency counselors, therapists, integrated prevention coordinators on these carriers rather. But these assets, they're only as strong as the people behind them, right? And then you've got 5,000 people on these carriers. When you're talking just sort of a handful of counselors and chaplains, and sailors are struggling with suicidal ideation, is that enough mental health support for our service members?
It's not at the outset of just the numbers. I would say it's not, but it's also, you have to factor in the culture, which we talked about earlier. And there is an underlying culture in the military that if I am struggling and I wake up one day and I say I can't do this and I need to talk to somebody, I then have to factor in, if I'm going to go to a chaplain, if I'm going to go to a mental health specialist, am I going to get flagged in my unit? Is somebody going to catch wind of it to where I will then be labeled a weak link and not be able to contribute to our unit in the way that I was hoping to at the outset of the deployment? That's something that has been culturally ingrained in the military for years. And it's, on the back end, it's rough. They'll tell you, well, why didn't you seek help? Well, that's why. Whether it's the ground level superiors who might frown upon it or just tell you to suck it up. I mean, there are many mental inhibitors built in to the average service member that would prevent them from seeking that treatment. And so, you factor all of those things together, and no, it's not going to be enough.
Why do you think these families decided to talk to you? And I thank you very much for asking them to come on with you today. Sure. But I understand it's much easier to talk to someone who's doing digital or print versus coming on television and showing your face. It can be very emotional. But why do you think they wanted to talk to you about this and felt the need to speak out?
The nature of messaging that they're getting back from their loved ones. I think there's the military lifestyle is twofold. We know the service members go through it, but the families go through it as well. So a wife who is now wondering, when is my husband going to come home? When is my daughter's father going to come home to be able to help alleviate some of this burden? There are all of these unknowns. And we talked about, missing things. Right now, the Abe Lincoln is supposed to relocate from San Diego to Washington. That's something else that nobody's talking about. And we have families who are just waiting in limbo right now, knowing I'm supposed to move from California to Washington. I don't have a date. I don't know when I'm supposed to pull my daughter out of this or son out of this, and we don't know when to arrange moving. They've given a ballpark. So you have that indefinite nature of this, and it's rippling from the deck plates themselves and the rank and file all the way out to San Diego, where the families are impacted right now. And that's just a very difficult thing to sustain with any sort of just balance in your lifestyle.
So when asked about this, the Navy said, we have not identified an increase in reported suicidal ideation or suicide attempts aboard the ship, talking about the Abraham Lincoln. What do you make of the choice of words in that statement?
Not identifying an increase doesn't necessarily mean that there haven't been suicidal ideations and suicide attempts. But I would take that one step further also, as we discussed, somebody trying to go overboard in their absolute desperate state of mind does not necessarily mean it is a suicide attempt. It might result in that, and it might be labeled as such. But someone who is at their absolute wit's end and just mental strain that some of these sailors might just look at anything else other than what their day in, day out, 12-hour shifts, frantic, really intense op tempo as a way to just get out of it. Whether it's, okay, I'm going to go to medical, I'm going to be put on suicide watch, I'm going to be examined in this way or the other. I think when you're in that headspace, you're not necessarily determined to end your life. You're determined to make anything change in your circumstances that might benefit you down the road or just get you out of whatever it is that you're in, regardless of what the outcome might be if that does happen.
J.D. Simkins with the Military Times, we appreciate your reporting, and we're going to stay on the story as well. Keep the conversation going.
Thank you.
Thanks, J.D. Well, if you or someone you know is in a mental health crisis, you can text or call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. Help is available 24/7.